My fellow Middle-earth wanderer, today's episode is on the shorter side, as I am recovering from a pretty nasty round with COVID-19. You can probably still hear the effects of it on my voice. But here we are, and I have a couple of insights left from the first chapter of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Fellowship of the Ring to share with you today. Bilbo has left, and Frodo now enters the story as the main character, the Master of Bag End, and the Keeper of Bilbo's Gold Ring. We're covering pages 35 through 40 of the 2002 Houghton Mifflin edition. Now, let's wander.
Your fever is high, and the pressure to log in at work is too. But when you finally decide to take care of you, there's Instacart. Just because that one perfect coworker is attending meetings, camera on, sneezing, coughing, and aching doesn't mean you have to. Trying to stay on top of things can get you further behind. Instead, use Instacart for tissues to teas, cough drops to soups, delivered in as fast as 30 minutes. Oh, and if anyone needs anything, send them to that one perfect coworker. Instacart. Delivery you can count on.
Hey y'all, Darius Rucker here. A lot of people ask me, what inspires your music? And one of the big things is a strong sense of place. That's why I love my home state of South Carolina and want to share the awesome things it has to offer. From the beautiful mountains down to the sunny coast, it's got it all. Not to mention two of my personal favorites, great golf and amazing food. Come see why I love this place. Visit discoversouthcarolina.com.
Finally, after all the events of the long-expected party, Frodo gets his first line of dialogue, quote, "Has he gone?" He is, of course, referring to Bilbo as he poses this question to Gandalf, reinforcing to us that indeed our favorite hobbit from Tolkien's first publication has, quote, gone at last. But not before some final jokes that Bilbo has left for his fellow hobbits in the form of presents and labels. My particular favorites are the trash can for the ant who writes too much, and the empty bookshelf for the neighbor who doesn't return borrowed books. Needless to say, Bilbo's wit that saved him from trolls and dragons also comes in handy when snubbing his rivals closer to home. But as is the case in the Shire, and with Bag End specifically, a false rumor is spread. Hobbits gather to claim what property they can. I find this similar to the auction happening at the end of The Hobbit. Again, a false rumor that Bilbo is dead leads to chaos in his own home that he has to clear up. But now it's left to Frodo and his friend Merry Brandybuck to stem the tide of greedy hobbits looking for an easy snatch of silver spoons. In the midst of the chaos, two simple details need special attention. When Frodo meets with the cross family members, Lobelia and Otho Sackville Baggins, he is, quote, fidgeting with something in his pocket. And later, Frodo confesses to Gandalf that he, quote, nearly tried on Bilbo's ring because he longed to disappear. These details are subtle, but they demonstrate already that the ring is starting to pull on Frodo's character. He already seems overly attached to it, like Bilbo was during the party speech. And Frodo wants to give in to the promise of the ring, that the ring will give its wearer power. Power to avoid uncomfortable situations, even to avoid one's duty and responsibilities, with the promise of an easier route to avoid such unpleasantries. Which leads to the final scene of the chapter, Gandalf's farewell to Frodo. After all these decades of Bilbo possessing the ring, Gandalf is finally starting to suspect something. Please note, though, that in the book, Gandalf does not mention a need to see Saruman. He simply says that he has, quote, merely begun to wonder about the ring. In the last paragraph, we get the first of a repeated motif. Frodo watches Gandalf walk away, and it appears to him that, quote, the old wizard looked unusually bent, almost as if he was carrying a great weight. We will see this motif pop up again in several places, that Gandalf looks old, nearly defeated, as he seeks to orchestrate the fall of Sauron. That is the end of the long-expected party. This chapter, while a literary foil for the first chapter from The Hobbit, goes beyond the idiosyncrasies of a hobbit party and introduces us to two of the main heroes, each ring-bearers of their own ring, Frodo the Hobbit and Gandalf the Wizard. Next time, we will wander into a thick backstory of a chapter, The Shadow of the Past. Thank you for wandering Middle-earth with me today. My friends, if you enjoyed this episode, let me know by subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing with your friends. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram at Lore of the Rings Podcast. For feedback on the show, please email me using the link in the show notes. Until next Thursday, remember, not all those who wander are lost.
Hi Lord of the Rings listeners, it's Ian and Danae from the CinemaSins podcast Captain's Pod, and you have our full permission to skip this pesky ad.
Unless you like Star Trek, then you shouldn't skip and instead consider joining us as Captain Ian guides me through what feels like trillions of hours of Star Trek content.
It isn't trillions. I mean, I wish it was trillions. Each week we take an episode of Star Trek and watch through the eyes of the self-proclaimed expert.
That's him.
And a lapsed fan that remembers nothing other than the robot man from TNG.
That's me. We also have a live show on Twitch where you can watch our chaotic voyages as we record them.
Find Captain's Pod wherever you get podcasts and check our Twitch schedule at twitch.tv/CinemaSinsLive.
Okay, now you can skip the ad.